Gossip hour.
We're all
You
in
are
here.
on now.
We're on now.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to Ordinance and Policy. It is October 25th, 2023. It is a very big committee here today. Present are Councilman Schramm and Councilman Hockett, City Attorney Paul Jensen, Finance Officer Chandra Phillips, Chief of Police Mark Dvorak, Public Safety Commissioner Justin Day, and Public Works Director Troy Kruger. Feels like a cabinet meeting with additional guests here, so
Who's going to be the referee if it's a cabinet meeting? Is that Mr. Hockett?
maybe. The items to be discussed today are the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, policy for fuel bidding, review of the vendor ordinance, reversionary clause for surplus properties, and restarting a review of the economic development ordinances, two alternatives. Thank you.
In
Glad to
order
see
to allow a couple of these folks to maybe not have to sit here the entire time.
We can jump.
We're going to jump ahead to number 3 on your list, for which there is in your packet about 4 pages down this entire chapter having to do with the ordinance on peddlers and vendors. Yesterday, I had a discussion with Public Safety Commissioner and the Finance Officer, concern about a vendor fair coming up and wanting to make sure that we've got everybody on board understanding the process in order to avoid problems like maybe occurred a year ago at this an event of this nature. And so what I told them was I would have the ordinance here for everybody to refer to. Chandra, I believe you have printed out and have provided to everybody a copy of the applications for the vendors to get their license, etc. So
This is just the application for the ones that come through my office. So vendor fairs come through my office. Traveling salesmen and transients go through the police department. So what you have in front of you is the entire packet that I give to them. It has the ordinance, it has the information that's needed. By ordinance, we have to have a copy of their sales tax license and a copy of their driver's license. There has been confusion and a lot of comment on why we need a copy of a driver's license. For the most part, when it comes to these vendor fairs, I could say I know 95% of them. But there are some people where it's their son or daughter coming from Kimball, wherever, that I might not personally know them. So when they fill out that form, and I send a copy of this form up to the state, and the state comes back and says, hey, we don't have anyone under that name, who really filled this out for you? I can send them a copy of that driver's license as well that says this is the person who gave me this. Once this has been filled out and I have all the information, I actually have a certificate that I print that they can post at their booth at those vendor fairs as well. So if the police department or myself or anyone from the city is walking around at these vendor fairs, they can see that a certificate has been issued. That is also set by your ordinance that they have to post this certificate that they're set up. There are some exemptions still. So I did speak with the state. There is such a thing. However, they have not been able to give me the state statute that supports this, but this is what their office does. In the case of special events or vendor fairs, if you only attend 2 of them in a 12-month period and you never take any sales outside of those 2 events, you don't have to have your own sales tax. You can fill out a special event vendor fair sales tax. And they give those to the people who post those. So when they fill out this form that I have, they write on there, no sales tax using the special event sales tax form. The state will see that, and the state will be looking for that special event sales tax form. Or the other one, if you make less than $500, such as lemonade stands that are going on, or if you're selling simply produce out of your garden, those type of things, those are exempt by the state statute, therefore exempt from having to register with our office as well.
So the special event sales tax form that they would get, that's only if they attend 2 events within a 12-month period.
Yep, and that's a vendor fair
Okay.
event.
So the person putting on the vendor fair is responsible for that
Yes.
form? Okay.
So when I spoke to the state, they said that they have had issues with that on their end, where people are hosting vendor fairs. The host of the vendor fair, number one, is supposed to, if they're collecting fees for booths, they're supposed to be paying sales tax on that. And they're also supposed to be submitting a list to the state of everyone who's there so that they can be looking at that.
Because there's no note on this application of
Not on
that
that,
being
where
the
it states the
situation.
sales tax number,
Yeah.
that is where they've been told to list that they are using the special
Okay.
event sales tax.
Okay.
You've all been notified this year.
We have
Ahead of time, they
two
know.
vendor fairs coming up. One is this weekend at the 4-H Center, and then one is November 18th at the Armory. Both fit within our zoning ordinances. So this was a conversation that we had amongst ourselves yesterday in the office too with Mr. Jensen and Public Safety Commissioner. This is not about us staying in control of who has what. The majority of this is for safety, and that's partially why we wanted to talk about this today. Number one, if you're in a residential area, you move to a residential area because you want to be in a residential area, not a commercial area. So we have to make sure that the zoning requirements fit within these vendor fairs. The second is we've had reports at vendor fairs that there's people selling stuff that may or may not be legal. Or that there's people that are at these vendor fairs that may or may not be safe for everyone attending. So this is a second way of this way the city knows who's at these vendor fairs and can kind of keep an eye on things too, to help protect those that are involved. At any point in time, anyone in any city, anyone from anywhere, you don't even have to live in the city, if you think that someone is selling something and should have a state sales tax, you can call the Department of Revenue and say, this person is selling goods, they won't tell you if they have a valid sales tax or what they're reporting, but they will say, we will look into it, and the state will look into it from there. I can tell you 3 years ago, I sent the state a letter with all of our hotels, motels, prepared food and booze, and the very next month, our 3B went up $3,000 to $4,000 because people weren't charging that extra 1%.
Yep.
If the host does not have this special event sales tax form, will the Department of Revenue be the?
Yes, Department of Revenue
contact?
will provide it to them.
Okay.
And I assume you're going to make sure that these people hosting them coming up have those forms.
Yes, so for the one this weekend, I've been in contact with the host. We're reviewing who has registered with me and who is registered with them, so that before the fact, we can make sure we've got this taken care of. Mr. Day and myself actually have planned just kind of a kindness effort to go in that morning and just say, hey, in case somebody got missed, here's the form, let's fill it out, now you know for next year, and then we can go from there. Just as kind of a precautionary tale. The event that's happening on the 18th, the host for that one has been in and out of my office 3 different times talking, making sure, it's not their responsibility to make sure I have all the information, that's my responsibility with those vendors. So it's been good communication, just a lot of questions and a lot of concerns from the public on it. So we wanted to make sure to get that information out there and make sure that council is aware in case anything comes up this weekend or on the 18th from different things happening, so.
It's great, communication is key.
It
It
is.
really is on a deal like this, good for everybody, so you have to have good communication.
And we wanted to make sure too that when it comes to if there is an issue, we want everybody on the same page as well there too. Because obviously, if we have to go in or something like that, obviously council's gonna be the first phone call. And we wanna make sure that as the department, we have your guys' support too. And we understand our entire goal is education here. It is not to go in as any type of enforcement or nothing like that. We wanna educate so that people do it the correct way. And we wanna make it, if they have questions, our whole entire department understands how to answer those questions or who to direct them to. So that's kind of the whole purpose here, is to get everybody on the same page, because some people are very not happy about this already. So that's,
Each participant is required to have a state sales tax license. Is that correct?
Unless they are exempt through the state.
Unless they fall into one of these exemptions.
Correct. There's a lot
I
of.
buy my tomatoes there to sell
Yep.
them on my garden, I'm fine.
There
But
are
I attend the
groups,
fair.
yep, yes, absolutely, and you don't
Pay
even
my
have to
booth
register
fee.
with me,
I pay my booth fee, which is
Yep.
taxed by the boss of the fair.
yes.
Okay, I got
Yep.
it.
If you are selling underneath of a pyramid company, so to speak, oftentimes you don't have your own sales tax because you are considered a salesman of that company. So that company is required to have a South Dakota state sales tax, and that qualifies. That's not a problem. We've had several people ask that question. I sell books for so-and-so. I don't register it. They pay the tax. Not a problem. They have a state sales tax. They'll provide that to us. So,
But if I understand, homegrown products like tomatoes and corn don't need a sales tax license as long as you grew them.
you are correct.
The seasonal sale of agricultural products grown or produced in this state by the seller. That covers all that.
And a big part of the key of the whole thing is to have these issues aware for everybody ahead of time, so they can take whatever steps are necessary, so they have the proper paper in their possession when they're actually conducting their event. That's our goal.
Yes, that's an important thing.
Yep.
And the city of Winter is not charging anything. So that was one major confusion that came up. One of the hosts copied our ordinance. Well, our ordinance has this little SS for statute and the number behind it. So I immediately got 5 phone calls in one day. You're charging $127.62?
Oh,
No,
my.
not charging anything, I promise.
Well,
So,
because that ordinance mark looks like
Yes.
a dollar
Yep.
sign.
Yep.
It's hard to
so the
read.
city of Winter does not charge anything for this. This is simply bookkeeping.
And when I drafted with that double SS, I never dreamed.
Me neither. It took me a hot minute. I'm like, well, that's a really awkward amount to charge, 62 cents.
Very, yeah, very awkward. So, Justin, to you, have we covered the issues that were you or Mark's concern?
yeah, because Mark and I sat down this morning and kind of went over our conversation yesterday, and just making sure everybody's on the same page. And, I mean, we know our goal here is to educate and make it as easy for people to come in and sell while still following the ordinances that the city of Winter has put in place. So that's, yep, I guess all we were looking for was support, because nobody wants what happened a year ago to happen again. That's why we've made the changes.
Education
Yep,
will go a long way to
100%.
settle a lot of this
Yep.
conflict.
But there may be that time where someone absolutely refuses
That's right.
to complete any of this. And there's steps that Justin and I discussed this morning that he had with Paul yesterday on the proper steps we need to take as far as, okay, this is a city ordinance. If they don't do this, this is, a violation of city order. It's a criminal matter. Report will be generated, given to Paul, and he'll take it from there as far as any prosecution he so chooses to go forward with. Yep.
Correct.
And to be, I'm not gonna say that because Brad Schramm always corrects me when I say to be honest, because I should always be honest. But anytime somebody says they don't like it, My first comment is, you have every right to contact your council member and have a conversation with them about an ordinance and talk through it with them. And so, I mean, we give out your guys' names all the time. We give out your phone numbers, how to get a hold of you. So I'm not aware that anyone has contacted you on this, even with all the comments, so.
No, that's good, educating people, that's good, we'll go a long way to stop situations from escalating.
And I'm hoping that some folks have the opportunity between now and the weekend to watch the video of this
Yes.
little discussion. It might help their awareness.
And the reality is, City of Winter really didn't reinvent the wheel on this.
No.
Chandra, you reached out to a lot of cities that do this very same thing, because that was, again, as we have come to find out over the last 3-4 years, sometimes our ordinances need to be relooked at. And so changes have been made to this one to kind of match what you're going to see in other communities as well. So it's,
I think it's important that people realize that we as a city, we're not trying to throw stumbling blocks in front of commerce.
No.
To prevent commerce from happening in winter in any way. That's not our role.
No.
That's not what we're intended to do
No.
here.
No.
You know, we want to facilitate, we want to help. We do have ordinances in place for, you highlighted safety reasons. That's what people need to keep in mind. There are some of these that can skew out and have shadows that we need to keep. You know, innocent people could wind up getting hurt. We do not want that.
no,
So that's why we have the ordinance, folks. That's why we have the ordinance.
And it puts legitimacy on the event, which probably,
Yes.
in the long term, will bring in more vendors if they know it's a legitimate vendor
Yes.
fair.
It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
It does.
You will hear from some, if anyone contacts you, that the state says that, allegedly, the state says that we're the only city that does this. According to others, the state allegedly says that we're the only city that does this. I know that's not true. Now, maybe they don't necessarily submit everything to the state, but I spoke with several finance officers that said, yes, anyone who comes in, we verify that they have sales tax, we verify this. And you know what? Even if we weren't following others, everyone has to start somewhere. Because those that weren't doing it said, we need to be doing it, let us know how it goes, we want to do it. So,
any questions for us? Okay.
Thank you.
Do
Thank
need
you.
us for anything else on here?
I don't think so.
Nothing has changed on this, we were just reviewing what's in.
That's
yes, sir.
Yes.
That's correct. So we can go back to the beginning of our stack of stuff here. A couple of things that probably won't take a lot of time or discussion, but we certainly need to go forward with to comply. First thing on your stack is what will become a policy in the personnel manual with a new section number 717, which is referring to the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. This is another federal statute which places some additional encouragement / requirements on us, specifically for people that, of course, are pregnant or have recently given childbirth, et cetera, who need some sort of accommodation to be able to continue to do their job. And that's really what the long and short of this particular statute is, an identification of what type of things they're talking about, and making sure that people understand under the federal law, we have an obligation to help out our workers who are in this situation if there's something that we can do to provide an accommodation that makes it more convenient, not necessarily convenient, more possible, more feasible for them to be able to do their job. Now, there is language in the statute, and this follows other types of federal civil rights where they talk about accommodations. They have to be reasonable. Now, that's a colorful word of art within the legal means, that always means, it means at least 3 things if you have 2 lawyers in the room. But the reality is, what it's basically saying is, if you could have an accommodation to help somebody be able to do their job and it doesn't cost you much, and it doesn't really cause any great upheaval in your employment system, it's probably worth considering if it'll help them out. On the other hand, you're not going to be required to bring in an architect and redesign a whole wing of the building in order to help somebody out who will be fine in 3 weeks. You know, they just had the child and they need some help as far as maybe parking a little closer. Maybe they need some help as far as being able to have a few extra breaks during the day, things like that. That's the types of things that this act is all about. So we have the policy that's been prepared here based upon the language in the statute. And so we will have a resolution adopting this policy going to council on Monday. But we would hope that you folks would agree to go forward with the do pass
But
recommendation.
this is nothing new. I mean, Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, it's something that wasn't passed this year, last year. I think it's been on the books for a while.
Federally, it was passed this year.
When?
The feds
This year.
required it this year.
The Sioux Falls Police Department is way ahead.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter-in-law.
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
5 years old, pregnant, and my grandkid, and she's a sergeant of the Sioux Falls Police Department. Okay, when the chief was made aware that she was pregnant, they took her and put her behind the desk. She they would not allow her to go out on any calls or anything in the field. She was relegated to desk duty. That's 5 years ago, so there we're on none of this.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. We can make accommodations, like you say, provide a parking spot closer, they can walk to, anything like that. In your jobs, you know, so
That's
you
kinda
can
always
mitigate
been-
any possible harm to the.
That's kind of always been understood, like in our LEC as well. Obviously, if someone is pregnant, we find other things for them to do that's not going to put them in harm's way.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's just the right thing to do.
The other thing that will happen under this, and probably another reason why it makes sense to have a formal policy that adapts this as part of our personnel manual, is that it encourages folks to contact HR. And from our perspective, it will give HR a reason to reach out to them as soon as we find out that somebody's pregnant. HR will reach out to that employee and say, we want to make you aware. Now, it's early on and you're probably not feeling any change at all yet as far as how it's going to affect your employment. As time goes on, it will. So be aware of the fact that we can help you out here. And there again, the idea of communication and information will be reached out, shared with the employee. You can avoid a lot of problems down the road if you start
And
head on at the early end.
The documentation from the doctor's office stating different things too, that helps us too. And we have people that will fight this too. That I want to be out on the streets because I don't care that I'm pregnant, I don't want to be treated any different. I mean, then we do have to listen to doctor's notes at that point in time and
Well,
what does the
and I
doctor
guess
say?
currently, right now, we have those conversations, and then at a certain point, our department heads make the call to where it's like, okay, nope, not anymore. We understand you want to be out there, but nope, not a good idea. So this is where we're gonna need you to be right now.
And like you say, Shandra, the communication with the doctor when that's appropriate, letting the doctor have some input is going to also protect not only us, but more importantly, going to protect that unborn
Well, and a
child.
lot of times you can boil it down to, especially on public safety side, and even over on the public works side, there'll be a time where it becomes a safety concern because climbing up high or getting in a pit or on the floor or whatever, then it does become a safety concern. And then that's when that documentation happens on the HR side, that due to safety concerns of this, then we're gonna find different areas for this person to work.
Yep.
But there has to be a point when it no longer becomes making an accommodation as opposed to you need to go on sick leave. Is that a fair conversation to have?
There are,
Sick leave is a
Put on
doctor's
bed
decision.
rest, there's gonna be doctor's order for bed rest, and that will.
if the
affect
doctor
your
orders
course.
bed rest, that's in one of those situations.
Yeah.
And that's gonna go outside the scope of the particular policy and federal law that we're talking about here. There are already laws, several laws in place, including,
Is a pregnancy considered a sickness?
It is.
Or illness, or,
for that purpose, it is.
that's what I'm wondering.
But the mere fact that you're pregnant doesn't mean you can't do your job.
I don't disagree with that.
It
but
means that
some
circumstances
pregnancies
may
would-
arise.
Would make it not impossible for you to do
Correct.
your job.
And that's where the
And
information,
who gets to make that decision?
the doctor.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We do not get to make that decision as department heads. You can tell somebody, we believe you need to go see a doctor and get us a doctor's note because we're concerned about you. We as department heads can do that, but we can't send them. I mean, we have to be very, very careful there because we're not doctors. We can't diagnose somebody. So we can require a doctor's note though.
but it becomes, because we all want to be friends, okay? No doubt about it. We all care for our employees, but if employee A is not pulling their weight, doing their job, there has to be somebody that says, you can't do your job anymore, you're gonna have to go on this program, on this sick leave that we provide. So that's what I wonder,
But it might be that.
when does that kick in?
Well, probably, under the scenario that we're talking about this morning, you might give an opportunity there for somebody to approach them and talk about, hey, is there something that we can do to make it so that you're more easily, more accessibly going to be able to successfully do your job as
Yeah.
time goes on? Approach it from that standpoint and start the conversation. If you get to the point that it needs to go a little further, that's when you have this discussion that says, we really need to hear from your doctor because we're very concerned about you and the safety of your unborn child. And so we need to hear from your doctor about what do we need to do to help you out here.
And I understand all that, but we also have 40 other employees that then have to pick up some of the slack
You
from
bet.
the one that can't. And that's where somebody needs to step in and say, we can't pay you to do your job that you can't do.
Well, we can't do anything about that. I mean, we've got FMLA and all sorts of things that will protect that employee. We have to be very careful on our end with what we say and how we say
No,
it.
and I understand that completely, but there's still that line that,
Yep, and the proper documentation and speaking with Mr. Jensen and HR and the department heads and everyone involved, all of that will get taken care of. Yep. We won't march in and say, you're not pulling your weight. Go home.
okay, so that's nothing but a figure of speech.
I get it.
But the reason we have sick leave is that when you are not able to physically perform your duties, you get paid sick leave and you don't make somebody else do your work that you're getting paid for.
Correct.
And I don't mean that anything bad at all.
No, I get that.
Okay,
And that's
it's-
where we require the doctor's
It's just a
note.
fact.
Yep,
That if you can't do the job that you were paid for, and we can't get you in a position that you can earn your keep, then you need to go on sick leave, and nobody has to make up your work.
yep, yep. And that's where the doctor's note will come in. We'll have that for both the employee's benefit and for the city's benefit.
What's bad is that the federal government has to write a law
Oh, yeah.
making employers take care of the people that work for them. I mean,
And there will be an amazing amount of laws that already exist that a lot of times you have no idea even are there until you run into the situation that somebody says, I'm protected by federal law. You go, oh, never ran into that in my 35 years. So you run into that now and then, because there is a lot of that. But this again is one of those that really can be used as a positive communication tool early on to let people know that there are things that we can do to make sure that you can continue to do your job.
And we'll have lots of training with our department heads on how to handle it in the future too.
We will.
We still have monthly meetings with all department heads and appointeds that go over financial rules and HR policies that have been passed. In fact, we have one tomorrow, so.
Anything else on that? Okay. Next, we have one of Chandra's favorite topics. Fuel procurement. As you know, right now, we're doing
Weekly.
weekly fuel bids. And
I bet they would be cumbersome with it.
It's
I
mostly
think-
cumbersome when you go to pay the bill and you might have to have 4 different vendors submit and get your information from the fuel system and then plug it all in and figure out who used it and what week they used it to know what price to pay it out at, and yes.
so, what we have done here is prepared a policy that would recreate the wheel. And there's actually 2 sub-wheels included here, so we'll talk about propane a little later in this presentation. But for the main part, what we're looking at is a process of annual bids in providing fuel oil, number 1 and number 2 diesel, and regular unleaded gasoline, no alcohol. Under this process, we would look at about this time of year, October, November, as a time that we would advertise for bids. And with the instructions would be that we're gonna reference the website where the state publishes the state bids on all of these fuels. And the state publishes this every week.
Every day.
Oh, I'm sorry, every day. There.
It changes daily.
So what the bidder is actually going to be bidding on is to say, I'll provide this product at the price that is declared by the state to be the bid price that day, plus here's my delivery fee, handling fee, whatever fee I'm gonna charge, whatever I call it. It's my fee on top of state bid is what they're going to be bid. So we put this into policy to acquire these bids by November in a scenario that we're awarding the bids by December to take effect January 1. And so January 1, for the entire calendar year, you would have your successful bidder providing the bulk fuels under this scenario. There again, the only thing that is constant in their bid price every time they deliver, and that is their fee. Otherwise, it goes based upon what is the state bid for that particular day that they deliver.
So they're bidding for their fee, basically.
Correct.
The state
Correct.
sets the price.
Correct.
Daily.
Currently, one of our vendors, that's how we do with them. They just give us what their delivery fee is based off of what the state bid is, and we do it every Wednesday. I spoke with both local, and both local said that they would be thrilled to go to an annual bid where the only thing they're technically bidding off of is their delivery. One of them did state that they didn't like the fact that the state has us listed at the Sioux Falls location, because that's not where their fuel comes from. Their fuel comes from somewhere else. But in order to stay true to the state bids, right now, this year, the state has us listed in the Sioux Falls location. Now, that could change based off of who is awarded the bid for 2024 for the state. So it does stay in here that it is based off Sioux Falls location or where the state has us located on there. And that's based off of who wins the bid at the state level for this area.
The next part of this also answers something that we answered on the weekly stuff. The question came up, what if you have two identical bids that are both the quote winning low bid? And what we have done, since it's been a weekly thing, is we have just said you can order from either one of them. Because this is an annual, what we've done is written into our policy here, the fact that if you have two or more that are all identical, you bring them in, if they want to come in or if they want to watch or whatever, there will be drawing of lots by the finance officer to determine who of those successful bidders is going to be the one that quote wins. It's done in an open process to guarantee as much fairness as we can. We have seen state elections settle this way.
Any and all bids, actually, this is a rule on all bidding.
It is.
That if they come in at the same, you draw lots. Essentially, you draw them out of a hat and that's who wins.
Yep,
Kind of old school, it's kind of cool.
kind of cool.
Yeah, cool.
Randall,
Yep, that's right.
Randall,
Yep.
Yep.
The other thing that we've done here, and this is probably, from some perspective, this may be the most important addition into our process, and that is a keep full requirement. If they've got the bid for our bulk fuel for diesel, and we get into a Friday and they haven't kept us full, and the snowstorm hits, and on Saturday afternoon, we run out of fuel, under this policy, the first time that happens, it's a warning. If it happens more than once, that we run out of fuel because they're not keeping us full, more than once means that we can put them on notice and terminate the contract for the rest of that calendar year. And in case of that, we could either rebid it, or we could award it to the next the next low bid that was the second in place. So we could go either direction to fill that in. But I know that's been a concern at times in the past as to whether or not they're keeping us full. And so that provision being here, that'll be something that will be information shared with them at the time they bid, in writing, part of the specifications for the bid process. And it'll be part of the contract that they sign. So there won't be any question about what their obligations are. It's going to be in black and white. Now, that talks about the bulk fuel. The other thing is the propane. The propane is, of course, a little different because now I talked to one of these providers yesterday at length, and to put out if you tried to bid that for a year, nobody's going to want to bid it because of the potential fluctuation that happens between what it is now versus 8 months from now when you finish the summer and you go into the fall and head towards the winter time. It might end up being $1.50 higher than what it is right now. So nobody's looking at doing that. But if you put out a bid to cover the period of time from September 1 to the end of April, they tell me that if you do that, so you're going to be bidding it like in end of July, early August. At that point in time, they're already ready to lock in their contracts for that winter season. So they'll be willing to bid based upon what they're looking at doing for those contracts for the winter season. And So we could get a provision that takes us through that winter season on one bid, one bid process that will carry us through until the end of April. Then as far as those other months, there's a, what's that come out to, about 4 months a year or 3 or 4 months a year? You'll end up doing monthly for those. Those are not big usage times. There's some down at the Law Enforcement Center in the early part of the summer, depending on the weather. There, you might have a little additional extra use up at the swimming pool. But it's not a big time for propane. So those months would be handled just as they are now as far as month to month. So, that's talked a lot. Questions?
You want to add 50/50 on your list of bid items?
Do we bid those separately, or do you just buy?
We bid them separately.
We do, okay, then we'll add that in there, yes. Thank you.
If I remember correctly, I think one of them at one point in time told me that their 50/50 is the exact same as their fuel oil. And so sometimes they'll just bid one.
No, it's 50/50 is just a blended number one diesel and number two.
Right.
They do until it gets to a certain temperature, and then they go straight number one.
Okay.
So it's just a cheaper alternative than going to straight number one.
No, I get that, yeah.
Sure. Yep. Okay. Which I suppose we need, because technically you could have one supplier who's supplying number one and a different one who's supplying number two. And if we tried to mix those, that could be a problem. So I hadn't thought of that.
Well, when you go to the annual bid, you only have one supplier
Correct. That's true.
because they're only bidding based off of their delivery fee.
Very true.
But won't you have one supplier for number one and a potential different supplier for number two?
Nope. Because
So
it'll, you'll.
one supplier is gonna get all the products that we use?
For bulk fuel, and then somebody else could get propane. Propane and bulk fuel would be separate, but all bulk fuel, the only thing they're bidding on is their delivery fee. And so you're just gonna award one person based off the lowest delivery fee for all bulk fuel. Propane will be separate though.
Yep.
So there is that makes sense. State bid for 50/50.
Yes. Paul, for propane, are we too late to go ahead and enter something and just make it now through April 30th?
The supplier was a little iffy on that
Okay.
because of the fact that we're into November now.
Yep. It'd be December before we could even get it awarded.
Right, right. Now, we can certainly draft in a little tweak for the first effective year of this thing, allowing from that point in time through the end of April as a bid. And,
Sure.
you know, whether maybe it would go from December 1, something like that.
And if they don't get it, then once this policy goes through, we would go to once a month versus
Once a month until then.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's worth looking at. We can maybe get that a little
Now,
more than half of the year.
Next question I have is, do we want to do these as sealed bids? Because we are not required to do them as sealed bids, being fuel. We can do them more as an RFP. Same process, there's just, they don't come in a sealed envelope.
My recommendation would be a sealed bid.
Okay.
Me too.
If you do it once a year,
Mhm.
I think it would require a sealed bid.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly fine with that. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Yes.
So the state sets the price of the fuel.
Yep,
They say, this is what we're willing to pay. And the bidder is only doing the delivery fee.
yep. And they update that price every day. The only day it doesn't get updated is a holiday or a weekend. And then you base it off of the previous day.
So I maybe misunderstood the answer, so I'm gonna ask the question again. So we could have a vendor that gets the bid for heating fuel, a vendor that gets the bid for number 1 diesel, a different vendor for number 2 diesel? No?
You'll have one vendor, period. for
Separate
all
bids
bulk.
shall be sought for each of heating fuel oil, number 1 diesel.
Yeah, it shouldn't say for each.
Well, it does.
You're right.
Yep.
Good catch.
Nope, the only thing that they are bidding on is their delivery fee, their service fee. They are not bidding on fuel, period.
So what they're bidding on is whatever the state says they're willing to pay, that's it.
The state bases it off of, and they've got a whole team of people that do this, they base it off of the South Dakota average for that location. And that's what they're willing to pay.
So I will scratch the words each of. It's a good catch.
Okay. What they're essentially doing is bidding, yeah, we're gonna agree with the state bid, and then in the last sentence, plus any and all separate charges of the bidder. That's what they're bidding, is the any and all separate charges, correct?
Yep, because the state sets what you pay the taxes, what the taxes are, they set all of that.
It just comes down to the bid on who wants to do it at what price for the delivery once they receive it.
Yep.
The state doesn't give a price on propane, do they?
Not for our location.
So we'll have to just go off our bidder's price. And that would be 2 bids during the year, 2 separate bids.
Well, more than that, it'll be one for the long period of months through the heating season, and then every month during the summer
Every
season.
month we'll have to collect the price.
We'll do every month during that season. And I was told to do that because in July, or I'm sorry, in the end of May or first part of June, they're looking at a different scenario than they're looking at in August.
Oh,
So with those additions, corrections, et cetera, we good to go as far as recommended council?
That'll show up as another resolution for you to be entered
There
into
will be
our
a
policy book. So you'll
resolution.
void the current that says that we do it weekly, and then replace it with this one.
Correct. The next thing, you'll see a sample of a quitclaim deed. I just wanted to put in front of the committee here so that we as a city can start getting ready to hopefully start moving some of the surplus real estate properties that need to be put out for development, whether those are done through a development corporation or whether those are done through sale to private bidders, however the council decides to do it. We wanted to have a provision in here that says, and I'll paraphrase it very, very shortly here. Basically, it's a 2-year window from the time that we conduct the sale or make the transfer. And that 2-year window would be, number one, you got 1 year to actually start your construction. So that gives them time to, whether it's design, arrange contractors, whatever they need to do, but get started within a year. The other is complete construction within 2 years. And so that it gives them that full 2-year period to get to the point where basically you've got sufficient completion of construction so it's ready for occupancy. Could be that we still need some trim work, this, that, and the other thing, but if it's ready for occupancy, that means it's ready to also go on to the tax rolls with the county assessor and ready to go forward. So that's what that language is there for, and this language would be a provision in any deed that the city would use to transfer off this property to whoever is going to get it.
So any lot that we would dispose of in this manner, there's this requirement that something will be built back within 2 years.
Correct.
Any.
That's what I-
whatever the property.
That is the idea behind this provision. Now, I mean, if we have a property that's not up for
Well, conducive to,
development,
yeah.
then obviously that'll be a decision the council can instruct me when it comes time to draft the deed. There won't be any revision, or I'm sorry, any reversionary provision on this deed because this is not suitable for,
Yes. Okay, that was my concern, is that we had this mandate.
correct.
Some lots might not be suitable for development.
And that'll be council's call, yep. If
How
that's the
many,
case.
how many lots does the city have that are eligible for this right now for sale?
I don't have a number, I don't,
Are those lots, once they're surplus, are they as is? No improvements by the city, they just go as is?
correct.
That's something Paul and I talked about yesterday. Troy, is maybe you and I and Chelsea getting together and printing a map and coloring it, so to speak. Sometimes crayons are nice. Similar to this, just coloring exactly what it is in those locations. Because we could give you the parcel numbers, we can give you the addresses. Sometimes that don't mean nothing to anybody. Sorry, that was a double negative, so it didn't make sense. But, you know, just like, for instance, when you're looking over here on Lamro Street, you know, we've got those lots right here. So we would print that map off and color it for you as to how many lots are available there and what the location is, the parcel number, all of that, so that you guys would have access to that, so you can make that informed decision. Is it inhabitable? Is it, you know, is there a building there? Is there not a building there? We know that we've got the ones on Lamro for sure. We know that we've got one down on First Street. We know that there's those, technically 2, I think, on Main Street.
Correct.
And they're all different sizes because they're all platted a little bit differently. And there might be some more too on Troy's list that he had, maybe down on North Van Buren or something like that, that if that's something that he was really serious about doing too, so.
We have one.
I know.
I'm working on,
I had a list at one time of addresses, it was a full page.
that we own.
Oh, I think it was like 10 pages, wasn't it?
No, but it was a full page, it was a full one legal,
It was several pages.
Yeah.
but with the property descriptions and all that, I've got several pages.
Yeah.
I mean, just addresses,
Yeah.
and that is, those are the properties that the city currently maintains, so we mow, we weed them, we spray.
But would some of those be our parks and
Yep.
things too?
No, these are.
Those are just
They're just
residential and commercial lots?
They're not a park, they're not.
Okay.
They're not in any kind of use,
Okay,
they're just sitting there vacant.
okay.
The city of Winter, in my view, is not a land holding enterprise. That's not what we do for the city of Winter. The quicker we can get these out of public hands, back to the private sector, I think we'll be doing our taxpayers a good service. That's where I'm at with this. And if I want to buy one of these and I want to build a garage on it, or a nice structure I can do the work in, that should be my right as a private individual.
Well, if it meets our zoning standards.
Well, as long as it, not, now you're getting technical, but that's to be assumed that you follow the
Right.
zoning and everything else. But this says that I have to build a structure, blah, 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 within 2 years, otherwise I can't buy a city lot.
So is this just a sample? I mean, this isn't something that we're gonna vote on and just give the mayor and the finance officer the authority to give them away?
No, you still have that control.
Yeah, that's all I want. This
Yeah.
is just a sample of what we're trying to establish.
Yeah, you have that
Yeah.
full authority to
Yeah.
give away property and
Yeah,
assets
because
of the
if Jimmy
city of
Jones
Winter.
comes in and wants those 3 lots on Lamro, it's the council that makes that decision.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Not the people that are
You
signing.
can put it
the
out
bid
for
plan.
sealed bid, you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
put it out
okay.
on auction, you could do however you want to do it, you can do that. So, the Clome Economic Development actually does this. And, they've actually had properties where they have all these rules, they have an HOA, all of that. And they've had some of those properties come back to them because it didn't get built on, and then they get to re-put it out there.
You're right
And
back
so,
where you started.
you are, but at least you're doing something to get it back on the property tax roll, so that you can get a little more property tax on it.
And we don't have to mow. I mean, let's face it, if we've got 50 properties that we're having to mow, that's a lot of equipment
It's a lot of
and
time.
woman hours, you know, to keep that mowed up and stuff. So, yeah, the better we give them away or dispose of them, the better, I think, yeah.
Auction, whatever.
Yeah.
A little more.
Yeah.
If we have a prime location, we might want to auction it.
I like the restriction. Yeah, I like everything about it, except I didn't want it to be a predetermined deal that one or two people are gonna get to.
No, it's
give
still
it
set by
whoever we want.
Oh,
council.
heavens, no.
Yeah,
That's not, nothing is predetermined here.
well,
This is up to council.
yep. Okay.
The other thing, just, and it's not talking about this provision here, but just for purposes of illustration of things that council can decide. We've had a lot of discussion, but no decisions, obviously, because it hasn't been to you yet for a decision. But you got 3 lots there on Lamoureux. The decision that council to start with would be, okay, are you going to sell 3 separate lots? Or are you going to sell them as a lot and a half for one and a lot and a half for the other? How do you want to do it in such a way? And then you can analyze, okay, with this size, what's available, what's the requirements for how much room is necessary for structure, give you the setbacks you need for, you know, whatever, so. But that's just, again, another thing that council can decide when we get there.
Sorry to do this, but, I mean, I'm just questioning the process here.
Right now, Renee Wedham's sitting in Jeremy Jensen's office, Jensen Design and Build, and is asking about those lots on Lamoureux, right
there
at
you
this
go.
moment.
There you
And
go.
he's wondering about those lots, and Renee would put a house on one of them, and he says he would put a model home on the lot right beside it to fill up those.
And there's 3
3
50-foot lots there?
Yeah, and he thinks he needs 100, but I'm telling him, Chris, his guy, took a drive with me, and 2 75-foot lots
That'd be a nice
would
size.
fit his homes. Now, he wants to go 150. He goes, are you okay with that? And I said, I'm fine with that, but
If
you
he
have.
goes 150, that's all 3 of them.
Well, 100 foot for one lot, 50 for the other. And I just said, well, you'd have to ask Renee if she's comfortable with that, because she's the one buying the house. But,
So, with the.
sorry,
Would
that's
you
all I
take,
film, I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe don't use names.
would you have
Yeah.
a list of those lots that are available?
I
and
forget
then
sometimes.
Advertise those lots to the public?
Yes.
And then, so say you have multiple people that have interest in those lots, those people would then come to council, and they would present their plan for those lots.
You're gonna start out by having council establish what rules council wants to impose. Then council's going to advertise them for bids.
Or
It's either they're gonna be a sealed bid or it's gonna be a live auction.
We have in the
Yeah, we
past
don't wanna
moved those
get-
homes through economic development in the city of Winter. We've given away lots to economic development in the commercial area, and most recently, as far as precedents in the residential area, not 3 years ago. And what they do with them at that point is totally up to them, but we have a reversionary clause. I don't think we get involved in it. If they've got people that are willing to go, you get the lots to them, as Mr. Jensen said earlier, and Joe, Mr. Hockett said, the whole idea is to getting homes on these properties and immediately and getting them on the tax rolls.
Yep.
And if we've got property that fits immediate homes that would be able to come in,
We
move
don't
them.
want to get people out here giving us different design specifications.
No,
That's
that's
not
not our
what we
job.
do as a council. We convey, if they're interested in 3 lots, we sell them 3 lots, they decide how they divide them up. If they want to have 100 foot and a 50 foot, that's up to them. We don't decide any of that. We don't want to get into any of that. That's
And the
how we
nice
do-
thing, if it were out for auction, it could be just like anything else when you have an auction. Okay, we're gonna sell it as one lot, but if you want all three, you get first option at all three type of deal. So there's a lot of different things you could do through the auction or bidding process.
I don't want the money. I want the homes on them.
Oh, well, agreed, but I'm just, it might be $1 for a lot, but you might get $3 and have the first one.
Go and get those replotted.
Yes.
Yes.
So if they want, instead of having 3 individual lots, they'd have to go to the courthouse, replot those as one.
They would not have to replat them.
You don't have to replot them, you just get a quick claim deed from the other one.
We're going to sell them whatever it is they're buying from
Yep.
us.
Yep,
If they buy a lot and a half, we just issue a deed to them for all of lot such and such and the south half of the next lot. You know,
Right.
whatever.
right. Then they don't
They
need to
don't
be
have to
replotted.
be, they don't have to be replatted into one lot.
Well, that was my question, that's what I was going with this, if we have 3 lots available, but they only want 1.5, well, now that becomes an issue of, if the next guy wants all 3, because he wants to build one big house on all 3, how are you gonna sell a lot and a half?
Well, I think what you do is you sell a lot and a half times 2, and they can bid on one, both, or one or the other, or both. And it's gonna be who the successful high bidder is. If the high bidder wants both of them, both of the 1.5s, that would be the high bidder gets all 3 of them. From there, they can decide, as long as it's done in compliance with the zoning ordinance. And the other thing they need to understand is that this reversionary clause applies. So that if you're going to start out and they're gonna take 2 lots for one house and have 1 lot for the other house, they're still gonna have this reversionary clause that says you need to have both of them done, ready to occupy in 2 years or less.
And I think we let them determine how much they want to buy, keeping in mind that it can't be, they can't leave less than a 50-foot lot with us.
Right.
Because we can't nobody can build on less than 50.
That's my concern.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, just make sure that that's part of your agreement, that if they want to bid on a lot and a half, that's fine, but now we got a lot and a half to sell, but we can't sell a half lot.
Nope.
Right, and then the other thing is, you don't want somebody buying all 3 of those lots, putting a house on one lot, and then they don't want neighbors.
Right,
So they
that's
don't-
what
They
it,
don't do anything with the other 2 lots.
That's why this
They do want to sell utilities.
That's why this provision is still going to apply. So if they build on a lot and a half,
75 by, those lots are 140 deep, correct?
Yeah,
Or
Yes,
120,
they
I
are.
think.
No, those are 140 there.
because they got an
Typically,
alley
they're
running
150.
behind. Yeah.
That's 75 by 140, what are you looking at, 9,000 square foot lot?
But if they bought all 3 lots and built 5 foot on lot 1, used all 50 foot on lot 2 and 5 foot on lot 3, they have in fact met their obligation, have they not?
I would think they would.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pardon me, one more time, Councilman.
Okay, said they buy all 3 lots.
Yes, sir.
And just like my house at 233 Taft, okay, 5 foot is on this lot, and then they build 50 foot wide on the next lot, and 5 foot on the third lot. They have utilized their obligation in this.
So that's up to them.
Agreed.
It's up to them.
I 100% agree, but they have to make sure they put something on all 3 lots.
Correct.
Yep.
The 75 by 140 is 10,500 square feet.
That's big.
That is huge. If you go 150 by 140, that's 21,000 square feet. You don't want one house on 21,000 square feet when,
You might not.
yeah. The developer,
What about this house at Third and on the other side of the courthouse? That guy just built a huge house.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who it is, but a great big house that took forever, they ran into water, all those things they ran into, that's a huge house.
yeah.
And I don't know how many lots it's on, but big. So, yeah, I know what you're saying, but with this reversionary clause, they would have to make sure that they complied with that on all 3 lots.
Correct.
Unless we go in and sell them only as lots and a half. And that's what people bid on, is a lot and a half, giving them a 75 by 140 lot. And now we don't have to worry about what they're gonna bid on, because we made the lots a different size or
Yeah.
whatever. But there's a lot of money involved in replotting, is there not? I mean,
If they do a full replat,
Yeah.
then that does,
plat.
Pay a
that
surveyor.
does get expensive.
Yep, and I think we wanna stay out of that, but. the
It's
people-
something they don't need to do and something we don't need to
Yeah.
do. We can describe it based upon what's there.
But to have a 65-foot long house with a garage on the end of it, that's not out of thinking, you know? And that would take up all 3 lots.
Now, my recommendation is going to be that council looks at doing a lot and a half and a lot and a half, so you're selling 2 parcels of a lot and a half each. If one person buys
Yeah,
all
so
3
be
of
it.
them,
So be it.
Yes.
so
Yep.
be it, yeah. But at least you're given the greatest options possible to get 2 pretty nice sized houses in there.
Yep,
And some really nice sized lots.
or one big house with big side yards, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so.
okay?
I have a real quick question. We talked about this really briefly yesterday, Paul. So we did safety training a couple weeks ago and found that some of our safety equipment needed replaced like ASAP. So it's got to get replaced. That's not a question. They're buying to get replaced. However, there is some leftover money, a grant from SDML Workers Comp Fund for trenching and confined space. It's a 50-50 grant. By state statute, in order to apply for a grant, council has to give the mayor authority to apply for a grant. So I need to get this submitted to them as soon as possible. I can't get it submitted with the mayor's signature until after our next council meeting, but are you okay with me submitting now without the signature? I don't know.
And we can do that the way the program is structured. As long as we have some head nodding, so to speak, from council that indicates they're going to they will give the authority. It's just timing doesn't allow us to do it right now, but we will plan to. And they will accept it under those circumstances.
It's a reimbursement grant, so we have to spend all the money out before we even see it anyway.
Yep.
But we would start the process if you felt like council would be okay with that. Obviously, I would let Brad know at the time too that there is a possibility council could vote this down, so don't give it to me without knowing that council voted it in, but at least have a general consensus of where we're at.
I don't know,
'Cause-
it's kind of a requirement that we replace it, it's not, I mean, the whole council needs to vote on it, but it's, the equipment that she's talking about is a couple safety harnesses for some of our tripods, and so if we have to lower somebody down into a confined space or whatever. At our last confined space entry training, they made us aware that, those harnesses after 5 years, you gotta throw them out and replace them. It's just, it's OSHA, that's an OSHA.
Sure, just the rod.
We are exempt from OSHA, but we try to follow OSHA's guidelines
Yeah.
to protect
For
ourselves.
safety reasons.
So it's just a safety, it's replacement of safety equipment, and it's pretty much mandatory that we do it. I mean, we really don't have the,
Yeah, why would we want to be exempt from OSHA? Goodness.
You just are, it's a
Yeah.
municipality. And the reason being is that, so OSHA at any point in time, when it comes to the private sector, they can walk up to your job site and they can shut you down.
Yes.
If you're not
compliant.
If you're not
Yep.
compliant with
Yep.
OSHA, they can't do that to municipalities.
Right.
Oh, is that right?
They can't, correct.
So, but this is just a replacement of safety equipment that we really don't have a choice, it needs to be replaced, and we were just made aware of it, a couple weeks ago at safety training, so.
I'd say go for it. Look at it better if you replace it.
We're out of time. I did want to have the opportunity opportunity for you guys to take these other things home with you. Never didn't know you were coming here for homework, I know, but, these are two examples that we started working on, frankly, it's been 2 years ago. For the economic development incentives. One is an alternative to the other. So you can study those, look at those, see if you find something you like, something you hate, something you want to change, or something you think, yeah, this really looks good. So let's see what you folks think, and we'll attack that next time.
So the other three things that I have on my list that we need to come back to in the future. We've never followed up with the grease trap ordinance
Good point.
here in the city of Winter, and I know we need to follow up with that.
Yes, we do.
Brad's EV charging, we need to continue to move forward with electrical vehicle and what we're gonna do with the rates as far as, because there's a couple more.
We're talking with DGR on that.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, as a council, when that whole comprehensive plan is presented to you, here, whenever the mayor decides that it's a good time to hear that, I don't know, we'll discuss that, but, when those guys come,
Next week, we're free all week, so if council would want to meet with DGR and they're available,
they want to come in and put on a presentation, that's a great time to talk to them.
On the electric stuff?
yes.
Everything on electric.
Yep,
That $30,000 they spent on the study on the.
Just give me 24 hours
study on our
notice.
city.
So
yep.
I can
That's
publish
a great
it.
time to ask
We need to hear that, yep.
questions.
Because
on
I
it.
Is
am
this a
serious
public
about
meeting?
the
Because
poor
the new
people
state
paying
law
for
says
the
I
rich
can bring
people to have
everybody together
electric
for an
vehicles.
informational.
Informationally, you
not have
still publicize it,
Gotcha.
that they're
Yep.
24 hours in advance that they're going to be here, so you don't have to have public input or anything like that. So the rules apply, but they don't. Some of them apply, some of
There's
them don't.
nothing in South Dakota
Okay.
that's
You just have to put in
set
there
in stone yet.
that no
Yeah,
motions will
But
be.
they-
all I want is facts, that's all I want. Do we have enough
They hear about it
electricity?
on a daily basis. so
Yeah,
They know way more than we know about it.
yep.
So that's your chance to ask those guys those kinds
So
of
that would be considered a special meeting to be advertised?
It just needs to be published. We can hold an informational meeting for council without public input, without public here, where we can be here to meet. And we have to advertise that we're gonna do it. I have to give 24 hours.
Okay,
It's just no motions are made during that meeting.
right,
It's just
right, but we
information.
still have to tell people that we're doing it,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes.
If more than three of us
So,
are together.
We
Jody,
need to
did you
give
have-
24 hours notice. If they can meet next week on Thursday,
I know, next week's gonna happen.
okay,
I'm not giving them,
all right.
The other thing, did you say there was 3 things that need to go on the list?
The last one, it came up, council has not heard this. We heard, well, some did, but we heard in committee that the gun club would like to extend the lease with the city of Winter.
Oh,
And they were looking to see if they could extend 99 years, and I think they're only like 30, 25 into the current one, but they would like to extend right now.
might be less than that, but yeah.
So I'm like, they're like, we want to work with this council, we can we extend it right now while we have good water?
Yeah, let me get the information for council that we know exactly where we're at on that.
Utilities.
They got something up their
Utilities on
sleeve.
vacant structures.
Oh,
I would say this, I would say, when it comes to the gun club, I would just say this, because the gun club's been
Do we need to shut this off before talking contractual?
it's been a, kind of a, no one's headed it up, no one's ever taken control of that, what happens over there and what doesn't. I would look at that, please, and see if that property that it's on is someplace where the city has an interest in using that property in the future, and if there's a better place for the gun club, or, there's been a lot of discussion over the years about having different options available. A lot of guys want to shoot, like our police officers, they want to shoot more than 100 yards. Just saying, I'm just saying, don't jump into deciding another 100 years. Look at it and see what the best case scenario is for the city, and is that could accommodate our police officers, that could give them a place to practice, a place to shoot, and also.
Don't we do that anyway now?
No, they cannot shoot at it.
We don't shoot out there?
Not rifles.
Handguns.
handguns only here.
Handguns over, they can't shoot over, can't shoot over like 50 yards.
In the last one that we have to revisit, we have vacant structures that are disconnecting their utilities. Even though they're connected to our grid, we need to discuss vacant structure paying the minimum utilities that are connected to our system. The way the ordinance is written, we need to clean that up.